Good morning, everybody. We are on our last day of Surfing 2026 here in Rosemont, Illinois. My name is Adam Robertson, NASF's Marketing Director. I'm sitting with Adam Blakeley from MacDermid Enthone Industrial Solutions. Adam, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk about education, technical programming. Why is it so important to have a strong technical education program at Surfing?
So I think it's important because a lot of people dismiss academics, especially when it comes to something so practical and pragmatic as electroplating. So people just assume you get someone who is somewhat enthusiastic or simply looking for a job, you put them on a line, they learn by experience, sort of a baptism by fire, and that's really how you learn. The unfortunate thing is that's sort of an antiquated notion, because in the past, a lot of plating solutions were fairly simple. They didn't require a whole lot of learning. You could really learn on the job, and not to dismiss that learning on the job is absolutely essential. However, nowadays, with the regulations, the call to reliability, sustainability, and the quality standards are simply just being amped up and enhanced, and the baths are becoming significantly more complex, far more complicated, and so the learning curve is just exponentially increasing year after year. And a lot of that is because we're trying to be more environmentally friendly. We're trying to create more health and safety standards, and because of that, we're removing some of those problematic, toxic, or carcinogenic materials so that we're providing for operator safety, the public safety. And every time you do that, when you remove a crucial ingredient, you can't just replace it with something else, otherwise we would have done so. You replace it with probably a half a dozen different other ingredients that are far harder to track, far harder to analyze, far harder to understand. And that's why technical education is so important. You have to really dig into those details.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because when we look at sort of the programming over the years and how that's evolved, I mean, when we hear PFAS and we hear wastewater, right? So much yesterday, the day before, going on down this hallway, right? All of those sessions, and of course, we've been talking to some of our incredible exhibitors, right? They've been mentioning things like, maintaining compliant with regulations.
Correct.
So that is really important. People have learned a lot so far here this year. Let's talk about conversations, right? What are the conversations that from your perspective should be happening and that our industry should be paying attention to?
So the big thing is it kind of piggybacking off of the idea of why training, why actually coming to Surfing and actually engaging in the NASF Foundation that offers all these educational courses. The biggest reason for that is not just going and sitting in the classroom and having conversations with fellow engineers and fellow operators and electrofinishers. All of that is highly helpful, but if we're not having conversations that are looking to the future to recognize, are there problematic materials, and should we start devoting resources, time and energy and money into understanding what might be on the chopping block for the future. And if we're not having those conversations and understanding, because there's always someone that is looking at the landscape, looking at the horizon and saying, in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, this may be problematic. I know it's problematic. I want to keep my people safe. I want to keep the public safe. And so I'm going to start to preemptively whittle down incrementally some of these things that pose a hazard. And so if only one person's having that conversation and they're siloing or segregating themselves from everyone, they're going to be off on their own. And yes, they'll have sort of a monopoly on that idea, but it's not going to help the industry as a whole. And that's really what we're looking to achieve. We're looking to be a community, and we're always better together than we are apart.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the thing that is so special about us gathering at Surfing. Obviously, we have other events throughout the year too that NASF hosts, but at the end of the day, this is a trade show. But NASF is a trade association, and we are all working together to defend the future of surface finishing, but also make sure that we are contributing to what that looks like and moving the industry forward. And so it is so great to see who would be considered competitors talking and sharing, because we all have the same challenges. Adam, let's talk a little bit about just NASF as an organization. Your obviously time that you've spent volunteering and contributing to our committees. Let's talk about the foundation. Let's talk about committee work, right? Why is it important for you, and I guess for others, to dedicate their time to contribute to the work of the foundation, to contribute their time to committee works, and how does that like help also move our industry forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I may be a romantic notion or a quixotic notion, but it's paid off. I've been in the industry for upwards of 13 years. The notion is that why should you be involved? Because it sounds like volunteership is simply going to just benefit whoever else you're going to be helping. And if you're not getting paid for your time and money, and your knowledge and your intellect and what you're offering, how is that actually going to pay dividends? What's the ROI on you actually participating in these things? And I do think, and I've known because I've participated in pretty much every single thing. I'm part of the technical advisory committee. I'm part of the board of directors for the NASF, both the foundation, and I've been involved in the NASF on a regional level with the Palmetto branch. And obviously I'm also an instructor. And obviously I also work in the industry as part of MacDermid Enthone. So I've sort of run the gamut of everything, and I've never felt as though I was offering myself. I always got back far more than I ever put in, because people were willing to recognize. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. We all have this sort of self-serving motivation to want to share information. We're not at all trying to insulate ourselves. We recognize how important it is for this industry to survive. And if we sort of die on the hill of I'm going to retire and keep all of my notes and my archives and my caves and not share it with anyone, that's not going to be helpful. And you want to pass on a legacy. You feel like it's almost like your paternity in some ways. You have this obligation, and maybe it's based in a moral level, or maybe it's just based on even a self-serving level. It all, I think, coincides. I think it all coheres. So yeah, absolutely.
Whatever it's based on, it works. And I mean, we're surfing as an event, we really see that, but it is also something that happens throughout the year. I want to just ask you, from what we've talked about so far, I think it's pretty obvious, but why should people attend surfing?
Yeah, I do get that question a lot, and I think people dismiss. In fact, just this year, we tried a new thing. We have usually the CEF and the CAF, so it's the Certified Electro Finishers and the Certified Aerospace Finishers, and usually it's a baptism by fire, drinking from the fire hose, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you take the exam on Friday and you're a zombie. And unfortunately, you don't get to take advantage of everything else that it has to offer. So this year, we decided to allow them to attend a lot of the Technical Advisory Committee presentations. They got to walk the floor. They got to go to all the different booths and actually have conversations, and it was far more productive. And I think, and again, we haven't gotten full feedback from everyone, but based on what Kelsey has said, she says everyone's attending all of these conferences. They're making the most use of their time. And I think the bang for their buck is significantly better if they get a taste of the educational arm, and then they get to experience all of what happens. In fact, just 5 minutes ago, I was having a conversation with an engineer who was designing plating lines, and I had never heard of them, and I had never even seen them on the map. And they're number 2 or number 3 in comparison to the ones I know. I only know of sort of the premier builders, and they happen to be a secondary option. They seemed highly competent, and they existed in a space that interests me. I'm a product line manager, and I'm interested not just in electroplating, but now moving into e-coat and powder coat and paint, and they do that. And it's just a wonderful thing. I had never known about them. Now I have 2 business cards, 3 names associated, and that was just one encounter. And you can have dozens of those when you get here.
Absolutely. What a great change from the 4 days to 2 days, as you were just mentioning. I think that opened the door a little bit. I think at least the way that we're structured here in Rosemont, it's going to look different next year in Long Beach, right? But we're split. We have our education on this side, our exhibit hall is on that side. So allowing that extra time to really get a full taste of what surfing is comprehensively, I think is really important. Of course, business connections being made this year. We've seen a lot of engagement activity on the floor. I mentioned earlier in a different interview that I was doing that we've had some really fun activations. We had a donut wall, Don't Like Get a Donut, with an ice cream social, people enjoying ice cream. But it is really an incredible place to be. But as you know, of course, NASF is more than just this week. It's more than just surfing. We have our Washington Forum coming up. We have our leadership conference that happens at the top of every year. Why is it valuable for, I guess, one, from the perspective of companies being members, which then means all of your team are members as well by default. But why is it important for companies and their team members to try to engage with NASF year round outside of just coming to surfing?
So, generally speaking, all around the country, each region has their own special events, and most of the time, it's not just a social event. Yes, there's networking, and a lot of people do get a little bit turned off because they assume, like you had said before, that you're just sharing trade secrets with your competitors. It's not that at all. In fact, most of these are, even here, to go and actually take some of the education, it's obviously of a higher caliber, and so obviously there's a fee included in it. But a lot of these regional events are subsidized. You get food, you get lodging sometimes paid for, the entire conference is paid for, and you actually get education credits that you can apply. So there's so many different things. I can't speak for the other regions, but I know down in the Southeast, the Palmetto branch, which represents North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and a few other places, they offer, I'd say every 2 to 3 months, they offer some version of a networking social event, and they couple that with some sort of a technical presentation of some sort. And it doesn't necessarily have to always be on electroplating things. We've had lawyers come in and speak about legal things and things to be cautious of as you're engaging in obviously what is going to be under high scrutiny with the EPA, which is necessary. You want to be a good steward of the chemistry that you're bringing in and the earth that you take care of. We also have people from human resources. We've even had people come and talk about self-defense with regard to active shooter events, which is something that we didn't have to think about, and now we do. And so how should you set up your facility so that your people are prepared, they know exactly how to operate, and they don't go into panic mode. So again, it's not just about training on a technical level to understand the chemistry and understand the different parameters and metrics and features of the chemistry. A lot of it is just how do you run a plating shop, how do you run an e-coat shop, how do you run an anodizing line. And it's not just, and it actually does talk about how you even go about recruitment as well. How do you find people that actually are enthusiastic about this business, and how do you retain them? How you give them a sense of upward mobility? And I think that's really important. So I think it's highly useful to stay an active member so you can participate not just in the big event here, but also in all the regional events.
Every time I have talked to somebody who mentions the chapters, they're so passionate about the chapters, right? I was talking to representatives from American Plating Power yesterday, and they were talking about the Florida chapter, right? We have of course the California chapter. We have, we know working with Vince Noonan, big proponent of that, and we're going to be in Long Beach next year, so that of course will be exciting, and of course really supported by that California chapter. So our chapters are super important, great way to stay engaged throughout the year beyond just our NASF's key events. Well, Adam, thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.